So speaking of luminaries, we have a whole panel full of them, and I'd like to welcome Nick Nepomuceno, our customer success team lead and all-around Litho expert, to the stage. Hey, Nick.
Hi, Brittany. Thank you for introducing me. Sorry, there you go. Yeah, so happy to see everyone here, everyone collaborating. My name is Nick Nepomuceno. I'm the team lead over here at Litho. So I help all the customer success team as well as my own customers achieve the best possible content outcome. Super excited to speak with everyone and speak with our panelists. Before we get started, before I bring them on, I do have some housekeeping that I want to make sure that we're following along. I love the collaboration that I'm seeing on chat. Everyone is saying a lot of great things. One thing that I'm noticing though is a lot of people are only sharing things with the hosts and panelists. Make sure that if you have anything that you want to share, you share with everyone. You can just change the to everyone. So as we go through this panel, if you've experienced any of the challenges that you're talking about, if you have some best practices, make sure to be sharing that with everyone on the comment section. Now, if you have any questions that we would like to address to the panelists, make sure to use the Q&A button. So on the bottom of your screen, you should have a Q&A section. If you have any questions, make sure that you're reaching out to us over there to make sure that everybody knows how to use that. And listen to me just now. Everybody who's a current customer of Litho, I would love for you guys to say who's your CSM on the comment section and why are they the best. So I want to see everybody starting to put those comments in. Meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our great panelists today. From Old National Bank, we have Andrea Wendorf. She is the Creative and Content Studio Manager. And also help me congratulate her as she was part of the team that just got an award as well. Next, we have Jim Nicholas. He's the head of design from Live Golf. And then finally, we have Steve Gatch, production specialist, creative and media services at Summit Health. Welcome, guys. There you go. So to start with, and just so everybody understands, I have a few questions that I'm going to ask our panelists. You're welcome to chime in on the questions that you want to ask as well and hype them up on the chat version as well. So we're going to keep three different sections here, going with a plan, create, and perform. I wanted to start with the planning side and kind of talk a little bit about where everything starts, right? Where are requests coming from? How do we make sure that they're aligned with the company's broader strategy? How do we make sure that we are being strategic about things rather than just reacting to individual content requests? Andrea, why don't you start us off?
Well, we have requests that come in from many folks. So we have our marketing strategists that are sit within our marketing department who have a line out to each of our lines of business. We also have a community group that is kind of our brand on the ground in each of our regions across our footprint. They put in requests. We have our communications team that also puts in requests for us. And so we've tried to keep our requesters down to somewhat of a finite amount to really we're trying not to have so many requesters out there that they don't understand our process. They don't understand the information that we need, or maybe that there is information that our strategists know or our community marketing folks know that we could use to fulfill the requests of someone else on the ground, versus having something sent through or 10, 12, 100 requests sent through to us when it could have been nipped in the bud right away by folks that really understand what's happening and other things in market that we could use or reuse. We've tried to keep the number of requesters down to a level that really helps us keep our workflow flowing.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you have both, right? Content and creative teams inside the Litho workflow today.
We do,
Is
yes.
that how you kind of keep that team kind of compact on who can do what?
Mhm. And we also have compliance in our tool as well. So
Awesome. Thank you. Jim,
Yeah, certainly.
how do you make sure that everything is aligned?
That's a great question. I don't know that we do. I don't think anybody really does. I mean, it's really that juggling of making sure that everything works out the best. We're a small team. We're kind of nimble across the organization, still kind of in startup mode. And while it's great that we field requests from all parts of our business. We've only been back in Litho now for 2 months, and we've had over almost 500 requests come through, with I don't even know how many deliverables through that. One of the things that we worked hard at to get it right up front in the planning stage was we engaged with the departments that we work with the most. And while we've only been around for 2 years as a company, it's been 2 months with Litho, we had a good knowledge of what we needed to get built into our forms to make sure that we were asking the right questions to the right people for the right types of projects. One of the nice things that I found coming back to Litho was the ability to share requests. So now we're able to take requests in from our external partners that really help complete our internal teams in a meaningful way. So the requests can come in, our internal teams can review it and make sure it's aligned with what's in their planning, and then the creative team will accept it and then action it. So this way we're not spending time on things that actually, that are truly needed and required.
Yeah, having that triage before when the request comes in and it's not like automatically accepted, right? Like not having that, I think it's a great help. And now with the ability to see every single decline request that somebody put on, a feature that just came up this past week, and I think could help that as well, having those conversations and then addressing, hey, why did this get declined and so on, and even having data on it. And then, so Steve, how's Suma Health making sure that everything is at least somewhat aligned, right, Jim? Since we can make sure that everything is always aligned.
Well, thanks for having me here today. I appreciate that. We here are supporting our health system, which are our hospitals, and I'm also supporting our health plan, our insurance, Suma Care Health Insurance. And then we have 2 teams. We have marketing for both of our companies, so to speak, and digital and compliance. Where as Andrea is limiting the number of requesters, we sort of have a very large amount because with our health system, we might have nursing floors ordering collateral. We have about 400 people that typically use the system and put in everything from marketing requests to collateral and all of that. So we have taken time to develop our request form. So there are questions it asks as you go through it to help send you to the right location so you can get that information input and then submitted. And then also, we have to be not afraid to use the decline button, every now and then if something is not complete. And typically, within a matter of minutes, we get the information we need, and we're back into action. So that's how we're managing.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. So I'm glad we brought up the idea that it can't always, not everything is always aligned to the broader strategy, and random things come in all the time, right? Does anybody have any like strategy or any best practices on how to approach meeting those short-term content demands that maybe weren't part of like the overall plan, that are coming out just sideways, that weren't expected, and so on. And whoever wants to take it.
All right,
It's
I'll jump in here.
Oh, go
Sorry.
ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
all
Jim.
right. No, I mean, I'm happy to pass it on, but being, a new organization and, a new team, we're fielding a lot of requests, that are planned and unplanned. And I think that, Litho does a great job of helping us manage the stuff that's planned. And sometimes you have to take some of that unplanned and try to plan for it in your life outside of Litho. So, we meet with our marketing team regularly. We have a Monday kickoff where we go through what the plan is for the week. So, and that's where we get the insight into what could be coming that's not there now. And then we do our best trying to manage through having, not just employees in Litho, but we also have some of our contractors in there too. So when we need to, expand beyond what our own internal capabilities are, we are able to still keep the continuity of projects and workflow in Litho workflow.
Andrew, did you have anything to add? Sorry, I know you're starting to speak as well.
I was just going to say that, about 50%, I would say, of the projects that come in, we are unaware that they are coming in. We have a couple of separate workflows where we run Agile at Old National. And so we have a certain set of projects that we know are coming in every week. We know that what tasks need to be assigned. We know, certain specific campaigns that are coming, promotions, whatnot. But then, especially on our community marketing side, they are involved, of course, on the ground. We don't know what's happening out there, so we can't really plan for those things. So we do our best to use workflow tools and understanding where everybody is and how much time they have in the upcoming weeks to fit in certain projects. So we use that heavily to plan our days, our weeks, because you just can't plan for everything.
Awesome. Steve, I saw that you came out on mute as well.
Sure, yes. Regarding planning for, unknown projects that might be coming in, we do have weekly meetings and we create reports that, we share, especially with our insurance arm and going into our selling season here. So our designers know what's going to be, coming, and everybody that's doing the copywriting can get that content created. But those touch base meetings are very important to have. And we're always making reports, sharing reports. I like to share custom reports with certain clients, managers, the designers, so everybody can know, where everything is in the system and, what's coming. When I saw the presentation from Chris Hernan, with that new dashboard, that was like, wow, that's awesome. Very, very exciting, because we're doing a lot of that now, manually. In fact, after this meeting, I'll be exporting some reports and taking them into Power BI, for the project. But I think, being, innovative and adapting, like Doug was saying earlier, that's sort of what the world I'm living in, because people need different things all the time. So, you have to adjust your request forms. You might do it, once a week or, once a month, depends on what's going on. But, the work is changing and timelines are shifting, and you have to sort of roll with the punches to get things through. So.
Right. And I think because the things are always changing, and because timelines are always shifting, like say, it's very important for us to foster those relationships with the stakeholders, with the people that are coming and asking for things, so that they understand what our workload looks like, and we understand how we prioritize things, and so on. And somebody just asked a really good question on the Q&A section, which is, how are you coaching stakeholders to provide helpful and timely feedback? So I want to expand this question even a little bit more. Do any of you guys survey your stakeholders? I know we have several customers that they're actually sending out surveys. Do any of you guys do that, or how do you gather feedback from stakeholders in general?
We have a bi-weekly meeting as a full team where we talk about what's kind of on the dock now, maybe what's upcoming, and that really is a good open forum for what's working, what's not working, what could we what might be nice to have. I know we've talked litho, we talk litho a lot in our meeting, so that's one way. And then when we do meet with offline with say like our community marketing team, we understand what they're working on, how we can bring that to the team, and they provide us some feedback, like we could really use this, and then we'll talk it through, and then maybe come up with a package for them that we can do once and then they can use over and over, that sort of thing. Just a lot of collaboration.
Awesome. Jim?
Yeah, sure. We use a variety of different methods. We're still new enough that in our litho history and the team's still small enough that we can still do a lot of one-on-one time. If we see somebody struggling, we'll take a moment and help them through it. Do some screen sharing. We have a channel on our teams for litho questions. It's litho questions, it's litho enhancements. And it's just kind of like a general wish list. So if somebody's struggling through something, they can post a question there. We'll get back to it relatively quickly. A lot of times I find myself just going into the, question mark on my own screen and just copying the little link out of there and posting it back. But to provide timely feedback, I think the thing that we do the most is set our review notifications to every hour. For something that really requires something timely, having somebody notified every day that they haven't provided feedback isn't necessarily enough. We may go to every 4 hours. We have dropped down to every hour. If there was an opportunity to do every 15 minutes, we absolutely would. Especially when you have something that's, everyone's banging down the door saying, where is it? Where is it? And, design's done. We're just waiting on sign off from everybody that needs to sign off on it before it gets out the door.
Thank you. Steve?
Yes, I also wanted to say that in a way we really communicate with stakeholders who are not in the system that much is using the comment area and the request, and adding like Jim was saying, maybe links to the online guide to litho, or screenshots to help them understand what we need, or how to say do a change request. And then typically they're like, oh, I can do that. And they get in there and they do the work and then soldier on. So
any feedback that you guys request after the work is done? So like, hey, what was your experience? Or did you have any feedback in general for the team about how the work got done from the person who requested? Do you guys try to gather that, or do you have any experience with that, or not really?
We've not found a good way to do that. What we'd really like is that to be an option within the litho tool, is to have a post-project kind of wrap up, like especially when a project goes off the rails, like what happened here, and you can document that and report on it, and then maybe you can see some trends. Is it a specific team member, stakeholder, whatever, that it's happening more often to with, or whatever, maybe it's just a line of business issue that we need to correct. But even when projects go well, like, heck yeah, this went awesome, thanks everybody, but I don't know if there is a good place for it, but just a little thought for our litho partners.
I think that's a great request of Litho. Also, it'd be great if there was a way to even add on to that as well. My own wish list of being able to bolt on metrics around performance. So this way, after something's been done and sent out, we can still capture how it worked in the marketplace as part of that. So this way, there's a historical record going forward that this project worked better than this type of project, or that was more impactful. However, but just being able to capture performance metrics after something's been completed, as well as being able to survey, would be really nice.
Yeah, so I think that's a great feedback for our team. I do have customers that, and I think somebody just mentioned that on the comments, that when you complete a project and it allows you to send a message to the stakeholder, I have a customer that includes a link to a form that they've created that surveys about their experience with the team in general. It does take them outside of the tool, so I understand the need there that you guys are mentioning of having something. I also have customers that do have a custom field created for feedback, and it's star based, so 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars, from 1 through 5 stars. So a couple of different ways to kind of at least gather and have ways to then get reports on how the team did in general. But very good question from the team here. Next, somebody asked about how do you have any reports, or how do you strategize on how do you strategize your resource? So what type of reports, or I would say here even custom views, would you use to strategize resources when making a decision of who's going to work on a job or something like that?
Again, we use that workload identifier, where we identify who's on our team, how much time does it look like that they have available, and then what fits them best too. You have to look at their vacation time and the other stakeholders on that project as well, and who's going to be the best fit. But again, that timing is really important to us. We look at that a lot.
And for those that don't use yet the workload view, if you're using, it's particularly helpful if you're doing level of effort, or if you're counting just by items. Very useful to kind of make those decisions and strategize who to use and when. Jim and Steve, any tips there?
Sure. Yes, we just had our production meeting this week, and I have several reports that I share with the team. But we do use those. We have custom field for, let's just say, design, and then we can sort that by designer and see how many projects everybody has, and then we just use that to decide who's going to get what project next. So typically that's done by my manager, so we'll send that off. But yeah, we have various reports for those needs.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we have a variety of reports that just kind of track workload and who's on what, but as a team, we meet daily and we go through those reports. So that's when we would look at incoming projects that have come in, and then look at workload and balance it that way.
And I tell that to teams pretty often. There's no replacement for a stand-up meeting or some type of weekly, sometimes daily meeting, just the team. And it's not even just to talk about creative, it's to be a little bit more personal as well, and talk about what are you working on. You'll find that a lot of times people don't realize that they're working very similar things and get ideas flowing. So outside of tool, things are also really good. It's not everything just inside the workflow that you're using.
Yeah, we do that daily stand-up every morning. It's 15, 20 minutes, something like that. And you do get a lot of questions answered. And if someone says, I just don't have the bandwidth to get at this, or maybe we need to shift something, we do it at that time too. So.
And one of the
So,
nice things about our team is we're across 3 different time zones. West Coast
Mm.
US, East Coast, and then UK. So a lot of times something can start in the UK, get picked up in the US, and then completed still in the span of one day, even though it may have been across 20 hours. Which is kind of a nice way of working.
and before we move to what happens after the request gets accepted, we do have another question here about can you guys speak a little bit of the differences in your process for strategic efforts versus churn and burn requests? So thinking about resource planning, prioritization, saying no, and so on. What are some of the differences in approach to something that is a big, broader company strategy versus those churn and burn requests?
We get enough of those churn and burns. You have to get them done, but many times they get deprioritized. Yes, they may be small, but they add up pretty quickly. We're trying to find alternate ways to how do we get those things produced quickly, efficiently, and can we get them out of our studio's hands in a better way than take ownership of us. But those are all things that we're thinking about for future. So it just really is balancing that work, and you do need to say no on some of those things too, or say, can this get pushed out? We just don't have the bandwidth for this now. Promotions are more important. We'll get to this, at this time. It's not that they're going to fall off totally, but just juggling those priorities.
Say no
when possible.
Right. Say no with a little bit of care and a soft touch. Steve?
Yeah, I mean, we use the project priorities, religiously, and we have several of those set up in the system. And, I'm usually assigning those when projects come in. But depending upon, what other team members say about things, we might change that priority. There are real rushes, and there are things that maybe aren't so much of a rush, depending upon what's a system priority. So it's not just myself. I am relying on a team of people to help me with all of the work that's going through the system. I'm not on an island by myself. I have SMEs that are helping me, in the health plan, and on the health system side. So I really, it takes a village to, take care of litho and the care and feeding of everything that goes through the system. And I'm helping delegate and make sure everything is in the right place. And everybody has what they need.
And I like to say that I never say no. I'm start out by saying I never say no. That's the role of our creative ops manager. She's a much better person at saying no. I'm more the yes, if kind of guy. Sure, we can do that if we're able to reprioritize it further down the line. But that balancing of what's strategic or creative or what's churn and burn or rush, we try to focus the internal team largely on those bigger creative projects, the bigger longer term strategic offerings, and then we'll bring in freelance support to kind of help balance that out. So we've got a good group of freelancers we've brought on over the past year and a half, and we're keep growing that team, because churn and burn is also churn and burn for a freelancer too. You don't want to burn somebody out by giving them the same repetitive over and over. As a company, we're looking at even some partners like Superside or Sella to kind of help build out an offshore branch or an inshore bench of team members that we can rely on for some of that more churn and burn during the busier peak times.
Yeah, so great time to kind of pivot to, now we accepted the project. Now we're working on things. How are we managing that? Like you just mentioned, Jim, like the scalability, right? You have outside resources coming in to help that scalability. Some teams can't have that, so they have to figure it out how to do it internally using what they have. So what are some of the best practices for creative and content teams to still deliver high quality content, but quickly and at a scale? Steve, I'll start with you on that one.
Sure. I think what's important is to make sure you have, project templates that are going to match the work that's coming in. And if you don't, build something new for that and then, assign that, have everything pre-populated so that can get handed off and everybody knows what they need to do to get the work done. Have helper text and the tasks to guide people along. We do lots of translated materials and, building out that process and customizing it as it, for instance, has really helped out.
Awesome. Yeah, building in the automation on the project templates is key for sure. Andrew?
Yeah, we do a lot of that as well. And then when we have our triage every morning, we look at every project individually. What is the level of effort that is assigned to each task? Does it align to what the brief is that came through, and what adjustments need to be made at that time, so that the project is accurately reflecting the load that it's going to take to move it through. So you're giving it the amount of time that it's due. So if it's a quickie, and we can adjust those things. I mean, we try to do our best on our request forms to have that level of effort built in for very specific types of deliverables, but sometimes of course they do need to be adjusted somewhat based on the type and the information that's provided.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because I think there are multiple different ways of looking at level of effort, right? Obviously, there is a great feature in the application called level of effort that, as you said, you can assign to a project template. You can have multiple project templates with different level of effort. You can allow your team to have the ability to change their level of effort depending on what the request says and so on. But there are more than one way to track level of effort. I have a lot of teams that have a harder time doing the actual hours for level of effort, or whether it's because the team thinks it's the designers and so on think that it's micromanaging or anything like that. Instead, they actually make a custom field called tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and that's the level of effort. This is a tier 1 project, means it's a big project. It's a big scale. Tier 2 is a little bit smaller. It's still significant. Tier 3, it's more of those turn and burn type of projects. So I like to highlight to people that, yes, we have a feature called level of effort, but there's more than one way to track level of effort. Jim, what are some of the best practices that you use for like scaling things?
Okay. Yeah, this was great learning that people actually have processes around this. Currently, we just kind of run around in circles yelling and screaming like, how are we going to get it done? How are we going to get it done? And inevitably we find a way, right? I think that, where there's a will, there's a way in that case. From what we're doing to track that, we have tiers. We know what they are. Unfortunately, we haven't actually built it out into our Litho platform for some reason. We talk about it when we have our meetings and we triage the projects, and we can look at it through that lens of, is this really something net new, or is it just an iteration of something that's already existing? And where does it fit on the scale of that? Is it, super grand, or is it super small? We talk about it more. We talk about tiers more when we work with our external partners than when we do with our own internal team. And I think that's just because our internal team is set up to handle any of those in a way that we can. I mean, we've survived for 2 years in a really fast-paced startup environment, and I think it's been a great trial by fire for the team that's there. And as we start to grow out the team, there's kind of this luxury of sitting back and going, oh, well, somebody else can work on that one now. And being able to share the projects across a more diverse, workforce out of 3 different corporate offices in 2 different countries. So it's really nice.
So tell me a little bit about your experiences with project managers, because some people are surprised to find that some teams don't have project managers. Other teams have a bunch of project managers. Do you guys have any experience? Have you had both experiences, or how do you feel like a project manager helps make things scalable versus if you don't have a project manager? Why do you think that's beneficial than having one?
I'll jump in first. So for us, when we first started out at Live Golf, it was a 3-person department. And so we did everything. And nobody wants to hear my voice day in, day out, especially when I have to say no, right? It's always the hardest thing to tell people. And then you start to get a reputation of being the doom and gloom person that never delivers or never able to help out, right? And that's never where we want to be as creatives. So for us getting started, that was one of the first bigger roles that we, recruited for, was for a creative ops manager. And that creative ops manager does a great job of managing all the stakeholders. I think the biggest juggle always is competing priorities. And I don't know that we haven't solved for it yet. And if somebody has the answer to this one, please write it down, because I'm going to take copious notes of how do you balance competing priorities when they're in different departments. It's even difficult within one department, because we have one for our marketing team. There's part of the team handles domestic events, which would be North America. The other half of the team deals with international events. And while they're both happening within a week of each other, the priorities and the workloads that come in, there's a great balancing act trying to manage all of those priorities and getting it all managed. And they're like, oh, well, mine's more important than so-and-so's. Within a department, that's relatively easy, because it's just, well, okay. I mean, at mention the other person. Is it okay for us to do this because so-and-so said it's fine? Well, that always stirs up a hornet's nest, because that goes over very smoothly, right? But even harder when you're trying to balance it across other departments, and who's to say that my work is more important than your work, or your more important is less important than so-and-so's. So I'm going to open up the floor, because I just want to learn now.
Andrew, Steve?
Well, in our case, I can speak that, we have marketing strategists. We don't have project managers, so to speak.
Mhm.
But if we do have large projects, say we're going to open a new building, I've brought to the team Litho campaigns, and now we create campaigns and have lots of projects that are pertaining to that. And the marketing strategist is aware of all of those, might open all those. They might come in from other sources also, but we put them all in the campaign, and so everybody can see that. We add the team members to that campaign, so they know where things are in the system and how things are flowing. But training is important for your project manager, and making sure everybody that is in the system is using it to its best ability. So
I'm going to go ahead and say here, Steve knows a little bit about training, I would say. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Steve, but I know that you've won an award, I think was last month, the Summa Superstar, for holding your own version of Litho Lowdown, an internal version of Litho Lowdown. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, as part of building our teams and incorporating new users, it was suggested that we start having more training sessions than I was having. So now we're doing a bi-weekly session, which is just a half hour, and we pick one part of Litho workflow and we talk about it. Last week we're talking about notifications, and we just had a whole session about that. There's 3 different ways you can get to your notification panel to adjust your notifications if you want to. So we just picked something and we'll talk about it. But next week we're going to be talking about proofing, and that's it. We had one Litho Lowdown just about the anatomy of a task, where all the parts of a task and how how it works and how you can assign people and all that. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, I was flattered by my company. So
No, that is awesome.
thanks for embarrassing me, but
And it's a great way to actually do the, like, make sure that the work gets done too, because if you're teaching and if you're training them, if they know where things are, where to look for what, then there's no excuses why things aren't kind of, you know, done in a timely manner, or how to do it. Andrea, any experiences there with project managers versus no project managers? I saw you shaking your head when they said marketing.
Yeah,
So
we have strategists. Yeah. And also, we ask ourselves all the time, are these our blue chips? Are these the things what we should be working towards, right? What are the things that the bank has said, these are the things we want to work towards this year? Is what we're doing, does that align with it? And so we kind of use that as an initial basis, but our strategists are excellent with filtering that information. And then Roseanne, who is our litho queen at Old National, she's really good about when we have our triage session in the morning. We're talking through, okay, well, how can we rearrange, or does this really fit with what we've got going on right now? And so it takes a village, but we rely heavily on our strategists.
Yeah, and there's a question about how are you using your metrics, review versions, duration, deadlines to determine if a project needs intervention, things are getting off track. I think that goes hand to hand to what we just talked about, whether having a project manager or not, or like making sure that things are on track. Are there any specific metrics that anybody keeps an eye here for, not on how things happen, but what is happening currently? Are there any metrics yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, we did have some issues, and we decided to limit the number of revisions on proofs to a certain number. So if things go over a certain number, then there's notification that takes place, and then sort of a meeting of the minds as to, why is this in this draft reversion? This should have already been handled, sort of, to make sure that we are getting content that is more fully fleshed out before it's submitted and worked on. And by having that, limitation of the number of rounds of reviews has helped with throughput.
Awesome. Do you have any stats for us on how much, or not yet? Still working on it.
I do a monthly report on that, and but I don't have an actual percentage I can share with you right
awesome.
now.
I'm sure we can see it in the long term. Anybody else has any metrics that they keep an eye on just to make sure that things are flowing okay? No? All right. I would say review versions is a really good one. Durations is another really good one. So building those custom views to make sure that you're looking at those things is very important. And it does go into the next thing that I wanted to talk about. We have a bank, we have a health system, and we have a company that works in a global scale very often. How do we balance creativity and compliance? How do we make sure that we're doing things that fit, our creative vision, but we're staying compliant to other regulations out there from different states or different regulations versus countries, or how are we making sure that we can still achieve our creativity while being compliant?
We have our compliance person embedded in our marketing team, which is awesome. And so several years ago, we merged with another financial, and at that point, we were using 2 different project management systems, and then we had to decide which was better, Litho, and then, okay, so Litho is the product of choice. what fields should we have, and with compliance as part of that process, how do we make sure that the information that we're asking for, and then the information that we need to follow for compliance purposes, that is part of that request as well. So we actually have compliance documentation embedded into our request forms that our requester can click on. It'll bring up a document that has our tiers. We have 3 tiers for our compliance, levels of compliance. Does it need a review? Up to it absolutely needs a review. And here's what falls under each tier, right? So that's very helpful. So we can still be creative, but here are the guidelines in which you need to follow to be sure that it goes through the appropriate channels to get blessed, and you're following regulations.
Yeah, awesome. Steve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so with us, compliance has become bigger role with the work that we do, and we have sort of pulled in the compliance department into Litho, and we're getting up and going with it. And just like Andrea has it incorporated into a request form, we've incorporated all the healthcare compliance regulation checklists and all of those things into our request form as well. And we're actually developing a novel way that I'll talk to Nick after about, incorporating those kind of compliance rules and that workflow. So, it's wonderful to have everything in one place, and that's what we're moving forward with, because before there were data was in several locations, and now reporting is going to be much smoother and easy for the stakeholder to see and have and export and put it into Excel and do what they want with, provide it to whoever needs to see that. So
Jim,
and it's great for auditing tracking as well. To have it all in one place. You have the full documentation, compliance is embedded, they have their own tasks and timing around that, and all of that information is in the comments field. It's all tied together. If you need to see anything, the trail, it's all there, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I know for some institutions, you have to have everything for the past 7 plus, sometimes 10 years. Registered. You have to be able to find who accepted what, who approved what. So having that in a system can be super helpful. Jim, do you run into compliance issues with all the different countries that you guys deal with?
Not so much compliance issues. So we're a league, we're a sports league, and so we have 13 teams under us. We deal more with, the approval process of teams and graphics and usage and sponsor logos and everything that follows along with that. So for us, the nice thing about Litho and being able to have review routes is that we engage the right people at the right time to provide their feedback, and all of that feedback is transparent because everybody gets to see it as part of that, as that proof goes through the system. So for us, that's the limited stuff that we do with under the compliance kind of, moniker, but for the most part, it's a non-issue in this role. Gotcha.
Going into something that I know a lot of people probably want to hear about. And before I do so, a lot of best practices being shared on the comment section. If people haven't seen yet, I know Shayna shared a little bit, Stephanie just shared a little bit. So awesome to see people sharing some of their best practices there as well. And Stacy just brought in another one. So, but I know a lot of people want to hear about what metrics we're tracking. How are what metrics really matter? How are we proving our team's value? How are we going to leadership and saying, I need more people, or look how well I've done? I'm going to keep it a little bit open here. I want to know what you guys are doing as far as reporting internally, externally. Who are you reporting to? What are you trying to get out of the report, and so on. And I'm going to start this one with Jim.
Great. Well, thanks for letting me kick this one off. Probably the newest in the platform at the moment. But what we're using it for currently is to show bandwidth issues, not just, for our team, but also for the teams that are requesting work. What's nice about having a creative ops platform like Litho for us is that you do get these great metrics and we're able to pull reports. We have a new CMO who recently had to go speak in front of our board and our investors and talk to them about why we need to grow a variety of teams. Well, we were able to show empirical data that said, hey, look, this is the amount of work that's come in. This is how much it's grown, month over month. I mean, granted, only 2 months with Litho, but with our, notebooks and scratch pads, we're able to kind of go back a little bit further. But also, like, hey, look, our team's doing well, but there are some other teams aren't handling that as well as they could. And we can see that by the amount of time it takes them to reply and cycle their work through the system. So if they had more people, they would be able to reply quicker, be more thoughtful, do better briefs, follow up more regularly. And it's been a great way for us to kind of not just help ourselves, but help the larger organization and our stakeholders, help determine where they're resource constrained, and make a good case for why.
And what are some of the things that you've been able to achieve because of that?
Well, this was only a week ago.
Okay. So TBD.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, using metrics like this, even outside of Litho, I've grown my team from 3 to 11. So that's something that's nice. And we started out with just 2 of us for the majority of the first year. We joined a third person, and we were able to show that between our end of year 1 and the start of our second season, we did 500% more work in the off season than we did for the whole first year combined. So, those are metrics that you track, right? I mean, counting widgets is important, counting the value of the widget, whether it's a tier 1, 2, or 3, and the time on that. So much easier in Litho than when I was just trying to keep a notebook and, an Excel spreadsheet. Well, I say Excel spreadsheet, it was a numbers sheet from Apple. But yeah, so much easier now.
Awesome. Steve, I know you do some reporting as well. We've worked on some stuff. So what are some of the achievements that you've been able to make?
Yeah, here at Summa, we have what we call a calibration meeting bi-monthly. And so usually I generate some slides for, a large group that's showing, number of projects going through the health system, what's going through the health plan, how many rush requests are coming in, total number of, projects in the system, and let everybody know those key metrics. But, going back, like Jim was saying, showing the value that everybody is, inputting into the system. We're able to grow our team, last year, in one department just by showing, what is going through and what just one person was doing. So we were able to add to that team to make things better. So it's the reporting is wonderful, sharing, custom views, sharing reports, educating other team members how they can also create reports, for their departments. It, is a wonderful thing. And that's going to be one of my lowdowns coming up, in the future here is reporting. But empowering the other, team members to use the system and, get more out of it, because I'm only one person and I can do what I can do, but there's so many people and, departments that, are in the system that we're taking care of. So.
Awesome. And Andrea, I want to know what kind of reporting you're doing, but I also want to know, with the merger, did you guys use some of the reporting to kind of like talk about the creatives coming together or anything like that as well? Because I think we have a lot of customers that go through similar situations that I think could be super cool to hear. And for anybody that has some really great reporting, sound off in the chat in the comment section as well. So Andrew.
Yes, we would love to hear more about reporting. Reporting is not our strong suit. I mean, we're just kind of digging into what metrics are going to be best for us to be reviewing. I know we've got number of projects. For us, it's not a good number because we have there could be a multitude of deliverables within a project. So we've been tracking deliverables within projects for the past, I don't know, maybe we're coming up on a year to start to measure that, to say, okay, I think that is a better gauge of the amount of work that's coming through versus the number of projects, right? Because you could have one project that's got half a dozen deliverables. That is not weighted the same as
project is created equal.
That's right. So that's kind of where we're struggling a little bit, is how to best report what are those things that are going to be best for us to make those decisions. And so that's kind of that's our goal for the year, is really digging into reporting, and now with the new Litho add-on, that's exciting for us. It takes a lot of pain out of the data pulling. So yeah, looking forward to digging into that.
Awesome. Jim, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so quick question. You keep saying that everyone's dropping all these great comments into the chat. And since we're on this panel, we're not seeing those. When we watch the replay, will we be able to see the chat comments as well, or does that all get lost?
That's a good question that I am not equipped to answer. You can see the questions. You can see the chat. If you just click the chat bubble, you'll pop up on the side, just so you know.
I have a very short attention span. I couldn't do two things at once.
We can see if there's anything we can do as far as the comments section goes. Britt is saying over here, Britt is our I don't know her exact title, but she's our customer education success program manager, but she's saying that she's documenting everything just in case. Customer experience program manager. There you go.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
But yeah, and Holly just shared a good tip on chat, Jim, just in case you wanna look for it. Yeah. But guys, I wanted to thank you for sharing all this amazing experience with all of our customers. Thank you for being such a great partners. We really appreciate you guys being part of this, part of our customer conference. I look forward to hearing from everybody in the comment section how they're going to change things, or what are they going to take it on. I think there was a lot of really good tips and best practices here. So really want to thank you guys for taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you all.
And I'll bring back Brittany.
Okay, that was awesome. Jim, I know you say that people don't want to listen to you. I could listen to you all day. Steve, I want an invite to one of your lowdowns. Andrea, thanks for being an all-around inspiration, and congratulations on your customer award in 2024. Y'all, I hope you, like Nick said, have at least one tactical takeaway that you can bring back to your teams, that has given you inspiration, that has given you something that literally you can go to Litho right now and do. Or get on the phone and contact your customer success manager and say, I want to brainstorm this with you because this sounds amazing and I really want to try it. So that's the goal of today, to bring us together, to inspire, and to give you something that's actionable and helpful.